This review has been 13 years in the making. I first saw this piece of shit in the thrift store, and upon seeing the cover, I thought to myself, a Bruceploitation film starring Fred Williamson? This should be awesome! Because Fred Williamson is usually the best thing in every film he's in, and add a Bruce Lee impersonator into the mix, and you should get something awesome, right? This is hands down the worst and most offensive thing to ever leech off of Bruce Lee's name. Even worse than the true game of death. Maybe I'll get to that later. But right now, let's focus on this fuckness. Fist of Fear, Touch of Death is set up as a documentary about the life and philosophy of Bruce Lee, with a wraparound story that focuses on a martial arts tournament to find Bruce Lee's successor. Well, that sounds all fine and dandy. Not a bad idea for a movie. You know, except that they make up everything in this quote-unquote documentary. Not a single thing they say about Bruce Lee in this movie is correct. Everything is wrong. This film starts out with our host Adolf Caesar interviewing a supposed friend of Bruce's, played by Aaron Banks, who believes that Bruce was murdered by a move known as the Touch of Death, aka the vibrating palm. This rumor of Bruce being murdered, of course, has been debunked, but even in the movie, they mention that the punch may have affected his brain and would not have been noticed for weeks. Not only that, but maybe the death punch would carry on to his heirs. Feeling offended yet? We then get a demonstration of the punch, aka the mock, and it looks nothing like the punches I've seen in other videos.
Demonstrated to this reporter the basic principle behind the touch of death.
It's around this time the film starts to talk about Bruce Lee's philosophy. I'm not even going to tell you how bad they messed this up. Just listen.
You must realize that 90% of the martial arts is mental agility, and that your body is a weapon that can kill a man. Therefore, you must use this mental power to control your actions.
So you're saying that the mind must be trained and conditioned as well as the body?
The mind must be cultivated so you can eventually know yourself.
Well, how do you cultivate your mind?
Mental exercises.
Such as what?
Yoga. And even Zen. Meditation helps.
Then you're performing almost a sort of self-hypnosis.
You make it sound so mysterious and elusive. But it's really not like that at all.
Or would you mind elaborating more on that?
It's making the mind respond instinctively. You do this by eliminating all variables in behavior.
Well, why are all these variables bad?
They're too unpredictable.
Well, that should make it interesting.
Such risks are counterproductive to everything you're trying to do.
You will also notice that the footage they use is from Longstreet. What's even worse is that in the original footage, Bruce is saying the infamous "be like water" speech, as well as the art of dying speech.
Like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. Put it into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or creep, or drip, or crash. Be water, my friend. You must free your ambitious mind and learn the art of dying.
Offended yet? The fake interviews with Bruce are littered throughout, and it's so blatantly obvious that the interviewee was just spliced in. The only really funny thing in this movie is when Lee shows Aaron Banks the Fist of Death move, and it's shown off screen.
Watch closely, Aaron. It's a very fast and deadly maneuver.
That is a pretty sharp maneuver.
So then we get to see how Fred Williamson got to the tournament. This takes about 5 minutes worth of screen time, and then Fred is out of the movie. Yeah, he spends the majority of the film on the sidelines watching the tournament. His screen time takes up about 6-7 minutes maybe. A paycheck well made. Another interesting aspect about Fred in this movie is how much he hates the idea of Bruce Lee even having a successor.
Two cats fighting for Bruce Lee's title that don't even exist. I mean, that's kind of absurd, isn't it?
Well, these are not just my views, Adolf. I mean, these are the facts.
And the fact is that this match is just another fight between two good karate fighters. I mean, it's an insult to Bruce Lee to think that either one of them could succeed him.
So, in other words, this movie is pointless. Well, I mean, the tournament has good things about it. If the movie was strictly about this, it would be better. Although I don't think tearing your opponent's eyes out was part of the plan.
And then suddenly, he grabs for the eyes and twists violently, ripping them out from the sockets and, in a dazzling piece of showmanship, tossing them to the crowd.
This movie just meanders on and on with interviews of people like Ron Van Cleef, who cuts carrots with his samurai sword, and has footage of Bill Louie as Kato stopping a daylight gang rape. Offended yet? So now let's get to the moldy meat and potatoes of this whore. The documentary. From the beginning, this movie has an aura of self-importance and douchebaggery. Everyone in this movie acts as if they were somehow important in Lee's life. From our host actually claiming to have spotted Lee's talents before anyone else, to Aaron Banks saying he was a personal friend with Bruce, which, according to Sports Illustrated in 1974, he was an admirer. And they don't even keep continuity with their own fake bullshit. More on that later. As mentioned before, they get every fact about Bruce wrong. They start by stating that his grandfather was a samurai, and that Lee's family is part of a generation of fighters. Most of the footage of Lee's grandfather is taken from the 1972 film Invincible Superchamp. The movie then shows footage of a drama Lee acted in from 1957 called Thunderstorm, where they depict Lee as a self-entitled karate killer.
I'm the best fighter there is. I can whip anyone. I can kill with my bare hands.
His parents don't like him practicing karate and are unhappy that his elder brother has pushed it on the young Bruce. While Bruce did have an older brother in real life, he didn't teach Lee karate. Instead, Bruce was taught fencing by one of his brothers, which he incorporated later into Jeet Kune Do. They then go on to state that Lee left home to star in kung fu movies, where they actually state that Lee did not create Jeet Kune Do.
Do you have a job for me in your picture?
Depends. What can you do?
I can do karate. I'm also a practitioner of the other major martial arts. Jeet Kune Do, Aikido, Kung Fu.
Some of this stuff involves stunt work and can be pretty dangerous.
Offended yet? Also, while Lee did make movies as a child in Hong Kong, they were mostly dramas, and he didn't do kung fu movies until later. Plus, look at this movie that Lee supposedly made. Oh boy. Then they say that Lee went to America, where he gets the role of Kato in The Green Hornet. They then go on to say that he was a huge success in Hollywood, but felt out of place as opposed to Hong Kong. Which, of course, in keeping with the way this movie does things, is a complete lie. Bruce Lee was not a success in Hollywood. In fact, he had a hard time getting parts, and that's why he went to Hong Kong. Yeah, people knew him for the role of Kato, but that wasn't enough. A little earlier, I mentioned that the fake documentary doesn't even have consistency with its own bullshit. If you remember, Adolf Caesar said he spotted Lee's talents before anybody else did. But here, as mentioned, they stated that he started making kung fu movies in Hong Kong before moving to America. So somebody obviously had to see his talent before Adolf Caesar did. Unless Adolf Caesar was in China for some strange reason. You know what's even funnier? This movie mentions the lookalikes. Yeah, there's a whole segment that talks about the Bruceploitation genre. You know, the genre that milks off of the success and legacy of Bruce Lee. Black Kettle reference. And you know what the most infuriating thing about this whole mess is? It was a box office success. Yes. This movie This fucking movie supposedly made $2 million against a budget of $125,000. Oh, and as for Lee's successor, it's a boxer. Yeah, a boxer wins the tournament. Not a karate expert, not a kung fu expert, not a hapkido expert, not a Brazilian jiu-jitsu expert, not a tiger kung fu expert, not a crane kung fu expert, not a viper kung fu expert, not a panda kung fu expert, not a dolomite expert, just a boxer. They couldn't even get the sport correct!